Titus 2:1.
But speak thou the things which become it sound doctrine, that the aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as become it holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, but teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. Chaste conversations.
All praises.
So, Shalom, sisters.
Shalom.
Welcome back to another Chase Conversation. How's everyone doing?
Doing
Wonderful.
good, doing
I'll
good.
pray.
Wonderful. Had a great day. Tonight, we're going to be reading through some more laws, Leviticus 14 and 15, most high willing. And if the Spirit leads us further, then so be it. Before we follow along with us as we read through the laws. And we'll start at Leviticus 14.
One time would be love. Two time would be.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest. And the priest shall go forth out of the camp, and the priest shall look, and behold, if the plague of leprosy be healed in the leper, then shall the priest command to take for him that is to be cleansed 2 birds alive and clean, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it in the cedar wood, in the scarlet, and the hyssop, and shall dip them and the living bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. And he shall sprinkle upon him that is to be cleansed from the leprosy 7 times, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the living bird loose into the open field.
Oh, wow.
And he that is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, and shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water, that he may be clean. And after that he shall come into the camp, and shall tarry abroad out of the tent 7 days. But it shall be on the 7th day that he shall shave all his hair off his head, and his beard and his eyebrows, even all his hair he shall shave off. And he shall wash his clothes, and he shall wash his flesh in water, and he shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take 2 he lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, Salakia, and 3/10 dill of fine flour for a meat offering mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil. And the priest that maketh him clean shall present the man that is to be made clean, and those things before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall take 1 he lamb and offer him for a trespass offering, and the log of oil, and wave them for wave offering before the Lord. And he shall slay the lamb in the place where he shall kill the sin offering and the burnt offering in the holy place. For as the sin offering is the priest, so is the trespass offering, it is most holy. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and the priest shall put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall take some of the log of oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. And the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and shall sprinkle the oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord. And of the rest of the oil that is in his hand shall the priest put upon the tip of the right ear of him to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the blood of the trespass offering. And the remnant of the oil that is in the priest's hand, he shall pour upon the head of him that is to be cleansed. And the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord. And the priest shall offer the sin offering and make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed from his uncleanness. And afterward he shall kill the burnt offering. And the priest shall offer the burnt offering and meat offering upon the altar, and the priest shall make an atonement for him, and he shall be clean. And if he be poor and he cannot get so much, then he shall take 1 lamb for a trespass offering to be waived, and to make atonement for him, and 1/10 deal of fine flour mingled with oil for a meat offering, and a log of oil. 22. And 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to get, and the one shall be a sin offering, and the other a burnt offering. And he shall bring them on the 8th day for his cleansing unto the priest, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. And the priest shall take the lamb of the trespass offering and the log of oil, and the priest shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall kill the lamb of the trespass offering, and the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering and put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall pour of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and the priest shall sprinkle it with his right finger, some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before the Lord. And the priest shall put of the oil that is in his hand upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the place of the blood of the trespass offering.
Whew.
I know.
Yeah.
So a lot of things stood out for me, right? 7, the number completion. That stood out a lot. And if you haven't watched the first class, we talked about, Christ being our sacrifice, right? I have to find that scripture, but it's in our first not class, but our first reading of the law. Christ being our sacrifice. So when we're reading about sacrificing, certain animals, that was the way they did it before Christ gave his life for us. Okay. So that part we can disregard, right? We don't need to do that physical act, but we still need laws.
Right, because Christ is our atonement now. Was the ultimate atonement and the ultimate sacrifice. That's why they refer to him as the Lamb. He was the Lamb that was brought to the slaughter to die for our sins. So this is the one law, nothing else. This is the one law of sacrificing these animals for our sins that was done away with, right? It was the only thing that was done away with because Christ came in return for these animals dying. These like we read it before in our other in our previous study.
Hebrews 10. Hebrews 10. Something else that kind of stood out also, I've not seen a scripture to support it, but I'm sure it's there. But when they talk about placing the blood on the ear and the finger and the toe, they're just covering the whole body, so that's what that's symbolizing.
Right.
Yeah, it's like from head to toe for the whole body. Even though they're only doing it on, touching the ear, touching the thumb, touching the toe, it's still symbolic of a full body type of cleanse.
And another thing that stood out to me, because the Levites the Levites were given the priesthood, right? Judah was given the kingship, but Levi was given two separate different positions, right? And this position that we're talking about specifically, because we're dealing with Leviticus and the sacrifices that we used to do, is so detailed. It is so meticulous. The Most High had a certain way for them to carry out certain things. I mean, and that's why he chose the Levites to do that. That's the laws. Okay, so they were given, they were, because the Levites were not given their own inheritance. Am I saying that right? Their own lot. So they got, but they got 10% of every single tribe. 10%. So
and the good stuff.
Right. Because they were tasked with the priesthood and taking care of the things of the Most High, the heavenly things. So like atonements for our sin, that's a big thing. Atonements for our sin as women. Back then, we were committing sin, you or being or you know I'm not going to say specifically because this was talking about him being a leper and being cured of a leper. And yeah, so for whatever it is, they had to atone and bring these turtle doves when we were unclean, as we read in the previous lesson that will be posted this week. When you were unclean, we were supposed to bring turtle doves, rams, all these things to do so. And it is so important that we have our Levitical priests to do these things for us. Again, the Christ is our covering right now, and he's shed his blood for these things. But I was just pointing out the fact of how important the priesthood is. And our elders, they're in place today to pray over us. That's why it's good to like the scripture says, and I think we brought up before, to go to your elders when you need prayer, when when you're in the midst of sin. Go to your head, have him pray with you, have him pray over you, in the name of Christ. Okay, so that's a job that you can't, that I don't want. That's a lot.
Yeah. I hear a lot from Yashar'el that they don't need an elder, but the scripture tells you, I don't know if it might be in Apocrypha, it says, or maybe somewhere, anyway, a book of wisdom, it tells you, get you an elder, right, of understanding.
Right.
So elders are important. We need them for prayer, but we need elders.
It says stick close to them, to the ones with wisdom. Yeah. Stick close. Exactly. So, all right. So I'm gonna take off from 29.
Yeah, and I wanted to also mention the eighth day of cleansing in verse 10. The eighth day is very important, right? It has a lot to do with the ingathering, or I guess you'll call it tabernacles, in the eighth day. And that eighth day in prophecy, I'm not going to get too deep into that.
Yeah.
But the eighth day is super significant. So if you're ever reading through your scriptures and you start reading about the eighth day, just really look into what that means and how relevant.
So yeah. Yeah. But starting afresh, starting new, So 28, and the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hands, he shall put upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, and make an atonement for him before the Lord. And he shall offer one of the turtle doves or the young pigeons, such as he can get, even such as he is able to get, the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering, with the meat offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed before the Lord. This is the law of him in whom the plague of leprosy, whose hand is not able to get that which pertaineth to his cleansing. Wow. So yeah, you couldn't even, as we're still talking about leprosy. This was in 13 and it's spilling into 14 now. So the one that had the leprosy couldn't even get his own sacrificial offering to bring. someone else had to bring it for him, or the priest had to get it for him, because now that offering would be unclean now because he has leprosy. Okay.
Right.
So
Mhm.
and we're about to dive into the more female things of this, and I'm not going to jump ahead. Um, but and the Lord's where am I? 33. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, when ye come into the land of Canaan, which I gave you for possession, and I put the plague of leprosy in a house of the land of your possession, and he that owned the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, it seemeth to me there is as it were a plague in the house. Then the priest shall command that they empty the house before the priest go into to it to see the plague, that all that is in the house be not made unclean. And afterwards the priest shall go in to see the house. And he shall look on the plague, and behold, if the plague be in the walls of the house with hollow streaks, greenish or reddish, which in sight are lower than the wall, then the priest shall go out of the house to the door of the house and shut up the house 7 days. That's kind of reminded me of like how you would get your house fumigated or something, like if you see mold coming out, like black mold and green mold.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? If you just want to
That's what I
draw
think about.
kind, we just want to draw an example of what that might look like. So he shall shut up the house 7 days, and the priest shall come again the seventh day, and shall look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the walls of the house, then the priest shall command that they take away the stones which in which the plague is, and cast them into an unclean place without the city, so outside of the city. And he shall cause the house to be scraped within around about, and they shall pour. Can you hear me?
Con, con.
Okay. Your video was just doing something funky right here. I don't know if you could tell.
I cut it off. It's doing what it did last week.
Okay.
Okay.
He shall cause the house to be scraped round about, and they shall pour out the dust that they scrape off without the city into an unclean place. They shall take their stones and put them in a place of stones, and he shall take other mortar and shall plaster the house. And if the plague come again and break out in the house after that he had taken away the stones, and after he had scraped the house, and after it is plastered, then the priest shall come and look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the house, it is a fretting leprosy in the house, it is unclean. For an example of what fretting is just something that's really taken over, just taken over. It's painful. Okay, it's just too much to bear. So
And you know that mold will make you sick, so
right.
have you can't breathe often.
Yes.
Mess.
Yes. 45. He shall break down the house, the stones of it, and the timber thereof, and all the mortar of the house, and he shall carry them forth out of the city into an unclean place. Moreover, he that goeth into the house all the while that it is shut up, shall be unclean until the evening. And he that lieth in the house shall wash his clothes, and he that eateth in the house shall wash his clothes. And if the priest come in and look upon it, and behold, the plague had not spread in the house, after the house was plastered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed. And he shall take to cleanse the house 2 birds and cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop. And he shall kill one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water, and he shall take cedar wood and the hyssop and the scarlet and the living bird, and dip them in blood of the slain bird and in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. And he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and with the running water, and with the living bird, and with the cedar wood, and with the hyssop and the scarlet. But he shall let go the living bird out of the city into the open fields and make an atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the law for all manner of plague of leprosy and scald, and for the leprosy of a garment and of a house, and for a rising, and for a scab, and for a bright spot, to teach when it is unclean and when is clean. This is the law of leprosy.
Yeah. So a few things came to mind, but just to mention unclean and a clean house and what you have to do. So I'm thinking spiritually, right? Ourselves, our bodies. Even though we are talking about the law and how you have to handle the mold. So definitely if your house is moldy physically, we get it checked out, right? And we run tests on it. And of course, if you can't live in the house, you got to move. And this is what the law is telling us, so we can always reference the law for how we need to live and handle matters, even in our own homes like that,
Sis, you hit it the nail on the head. Because again, although we don't offer animal sacrifice and stuff like that, we still have atonement every year. And that's the time when we know we should have already dealt with a lot of the filth from time we did what Passover and got rid of the leaven, not just the physical leaven that rises your cakes, but the leaven in, the leaven in the sin within us. We should already be getting rid of that. So when atonement comes now, it's set free. It's given to because that's what atonement is every time they made an atonement, that living animal was set free. One died and one was set free. But you're right, sis, like we have to get our houses, our temples, our bodies cleaned and free of the mold and the leprosy, the sin, the leaven, we have to clean shop. Like we get up every day and look in the mirror at the pimples, at the acne, at the grime and the filth, and clean your face, and you put on your 3-step process. You do it, you make sure
I'm missing a step. No. But yeah.
So we have to do that inwardly as well. And we spoke about that in one of our other Chase conversations before, but it needs to be said in every, is that we always have to evaluate ourselves. Do I have something I need to get rid of? When you do, when we read in this book, if it's pricking you a little bit, that means you got some mold. Okay. You wiping that countertop and you're like, dang, this ain't getting clean. So I need to fix this. I need to go to the scriptures and fix this.
And what does the law tell you to do? Scrape it, clean it, right? And see if that fixes it. And if it doesn't, do it again. But if it doesn't, then you have to let that go. Whatever that is that you're dealing with, you're gonna have to let it go, or you'll be with those bricks, right, with mold, and put outside the camp in an unclean place. And you don't want that to happen. But I think, we're probably going left because we can really go into this, sis, with
I know. Sis, like us sisters, we could bring this into our marriages, and for single sisters, bring this into your you being a part of the church and your leadership, and just how we carry ourselves. We have to constantly be checking ourselves, the way we speak, the way we act. All of that has something to do with it. Are we in the spirit? Are we exuding the fruits of the spirit? Because if not, that's a smudge that you need to, clean and stuff like that. So there's always something. And it's not saying that you're going to have it squeaky clean, but as long as you recognize that this needs to be, cleaned, we have to clean it. You can't let it stay in the, what it says in the last chapter was the what do they call it? The parts of the garment.
Which parts of the garment?
Remember, we had to look up what the when they were
Oh,
washing out the clothes.
yeah, fine.
Yeah, you can't just see that your garments are dirty in the seams and just leave it dirty and then keep wearing it. So likewise within yourselves, like, oh yeah, my attitude stinks, but you know, it is what it is. No.
Well, no, we're talking about watch the first video when it posts.
Con.
That first two chapters.
The warp,
that we
the warp and the woof.
Oh, right. Yeah. I couldn't figure out what that was. You had to explain it. So
The warp and
Yep.
the warp and the woof, and that is just the weaving of the garments and stuff. You know, and a lot of us don't be looking at that. A lot of us don't be looking at the seams, like, and shoot, one of the things that we do when we even go out, like, we'll say my husband and I are out and about, and we like maybe get a room. We always check in the bed sheets. You can't just look at the top layer of it. You gotta we look up and take up the sheet itself and looking at the seams, because you know you'll have them little if there's bed bugs, they will be in the seams and the warp and the woof of it. They ain't gonna be just chilling on the top of the sheet unless it's really bad, but they're gonna be in the warp and the woof of it. So we be, all in the creases and the corners, like, you know what I'm saying? And so that's what we gotta do with ourselves, because sometimes we might be okay in this area, but right in the corner over there, it's like, your attitude, nah. You know what I'm saying? I could tell there's a little smidget of stuff in the corner there.
Yeah, and that's even what this is saying in this chapter here. It's telling you to scrape the house right after it's plastered. So you're looking between the bricks.
Scrape, and get rid of it. And get rid of it. All praises.
Just so you know, Proverbs, it does say the wisest, since we're talking about the wisest of women builds their house, but folly with her own hands will tear it down. So just keep that in mind, It's about leprosy, the plague of leprosy. And I just love how it can relate to ourselves, but also it's real, right?
Exactly. It is. And it shows and it speaks to how the women need to really make sure, because a lot of women do not clean their households. Literally, we're not even talking about your temple right now. We're talking about your actual household. Like, the surface might look okay, but then you look in the corner, you could tell you ain't like swept the rug, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and sometimes the surface ain't even all that clean. Like, you walking around and there's crud under your feet, dirt and stuff, like ain't swept in a couple of weeks. We have, as women, this is the job, like you just read, sis. This is the job we are tasked with among many, as the ribs, as the wives, as the sisters, as the helpers, to make sure that this job is getting done, so the house could be a peaceful place for not just yourself but your head, so that the church is taken care of, and when everybody coming there on a Sabbath day or the gathering throughout the week, that it ain't rodents running through because the crumbs never been picked up. You know what I'm saying? Es muy importante.
Verdad.
In that Spanish.
True.
All right, we 15. Okay. So there's we could split that, because I know Sister Kalaya dealing with the kids. So we'll split that again. She's dealing with the children. All right. We hitting it now. So that's we want to do 16. Okay. You want me to start this time, or you want to? Okay. All right. Leviticus chapter 15. And the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When any man had a running issue out of his flesh, because of his issue, he is unclean. And this shall be his uncleanness in his issue, whether his flesh run with his issue, or his flesh be stopped from his issue, it is his uncleanliness. So, um, so not just leprosy, but the man is also unclean when he has a running issue of the flesh. And we was talking about a thing that might just be like a open wound that's bloody, pussy, right? I might an unhealed wound. Is that what we're talking about, right?
You know, when I read this, I'm thinking, that's why I said ill, because it's a different kind of unclean to me. Like maybe he needs to see a physician.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know the extent of it, but yeah,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, because I don't know what gonorrhea, syphilis, and all these other issues are, but they might make you have a running issue. And just for the ones that are top of our head, like just cuts. People be running around with bandages, and you could clearly see the blood oozing through the bandage. You know what I mean? Um, something like that. You know what I'm saying? So let me keep reading verse 4. Every bed whereon he lieth that had the issue is unclean, and everything whereon he sitteth shall be unclean. And whosoever toucheth his bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And he
Yeah,
that
so this is kind of going into again, if you watch the first video, but the women's uncleanness, it's almost the same criteria for when a male has a discharge or an uncleanness.
Mhm.
It's setting kind of that same expectation on how to manage that as well.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Because all the time we hear about the women's unclean on this time, on this time, and this time. But okay, you can be unclean too. You got to make sure you're checking them. That's why people get regular checkups, or they eat healthier, or they, making sure that they ain't hopping around with every, Mary, Jane, and Susie, so they don't, that part. You know what I mean? So you don't get these things, because you can be unclean too, not just a woman. So, verse 6, he that sitteth on anything whereon he sat, that had the issue shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And he that toucheth the flesh of him that had the issue shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean till the evening. And he that had the issue spit upon him that is clean, then that's gross. Then he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And what saddle soever he rideth upon that had the issue shall be unclean. And whosoever toucheth anything that was under him shall be unclean until the evening. And he that beareth any of those things shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And whomsoever he toucheth that had the issue and had not rinsed his hands in water, he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And the vessel of earth that he toucheth, which had the issue, shall be broken, and every vessel of wood shall be rinsed in water. And when he that had an issue is cleansed of his issue, then he shall number to himself 7 days for his cleansing, and wash his clothes, and bathe his flesh in running water, and shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take to him 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, and come before the Lord unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and give them unto the priest. And the priest shall offer them, one for a sin offering, one for a burnt offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord for his issue. And if any man's seed of copulation go out from him, then he shall wash all his flesh in water and be unclean until the evening. And for those of you that don't know what a man's seed of copulation is, it's saying what it is, his seed. So, you know, when you lay with your husband and that spills on the bed or gets on anything else, you have to wash all of that and wash your flesh and be unclean until the evening.
Uh, um, Tom.
So the Most High does not take being unclean lightly at all.
Mm.
We like, I don't know. I don't be around. I don't see too many people. Like, that's why the hospital is so important. Or, that's why there's a place for when people have certain things and they quarantine them, because you could just be out here like really in the camp just making people sick,
Yeah.
and that's not cool, because now you have a whole outbreak now. You know what I'm saying? So, we might not be doctors, anything like that, but it would behoove us to, if you have anybody within your camp, within your dwelling, or whatever it is, that we're looking on to these things like, okay, you good? Like, hopefully people
Yeah.
being upfront about what's going on, and they're not going to, put impose that on you. But if not, it's like, we just want to lay the foundation down that, boom, if you have any running issues, if you got the flu, stuff like that, because people be spewing that stuff out there. It just said if you spit on somebody, you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
You make them
So
unclean.
exactly. When and it says something about if you do if you touch somebody, you didn't wash your hands. Like, the Most High was the first author of cleanliness. Okay, ain't
Yeah.
nobody. I don't know why all of a sudden after COVID, COVID had to hit for people to be told, wash your hands, wash your hands.
Cover
Like,
yourself. Jeez.
that was a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, mm,
Yeah, so it makes me think about too. You like you said, he's the author of cleanliness. All of this ends in washing your flesh, right? Washing with water. So that always stands out for me when we're reading this. That's super important. And then we can't talk about the priest's job or elder's job enough, because after all of this, that eighth day, we need to go to somebody for prayer. Okay, we've set ourselves apart. Our body is currently healed. Now we need to receive some prayer,
right.
right? So we need to go to our elders. We need to go to our priests. You need to get yourself in the love of a congregation so that you have someone that you can go to. And I'm not saying a big congregation. To congregate means just to come together.
Time.
So, but those things are important, and it's telling us here at the end of these, we're washing, right? And we're going to the priest, and like you said, they'll make atonement for us, but in the same sense, our elders will pray for us, and cover us.
Right. And that also brings me just thinking to the fact that back to the fact that we just as women, we need to make sure that we have good hygiene. Now we about to actually start reading some of that a little bit, but we need to make sure that we have good hygiene. Or, just after you take a bath or a shower, making sure that you go in there and clean the shower, because if you could go in your shower and see a ring around your tub, that's unclean. That's not clean. That means the filth that came off somebody else is still there, and you don't know. Hopefully, that person didn't have an issue. You know what I mean? But it's that I'm just saying, it all comes back into just being clean in your home, being clean in your he is about being clean. You know how many times he done say wash yourself and wash your clothes. He didn't just say take off your dirt. He didn't just say take off the clothes and put them in a hamper. He say wash them, wash yourself.
Yeah.
You gotta get under the fingernails. Like, how you take a shower and under your fingernails is dirty. So we just have
The
to,
water just beating off of you.
I'm just saying because speaking to the ladies that like, because this is a ladies discussion that sometimes we just don't be thinking about a lot of this stuff. Or maybe we just need to hear it. We might know, but you just need to hear it
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
You know?
It's like we learned in the last reading, right? About discarding, we'll say, our
Right,
undergarments after we wash them twice, and if they're not clean, don't keep them around. Get rid of them.
right.
You know, again, watch that video, sisters,
Kind,
when it gets posted.
kind.
I did want to say, and then I'll go into the reading, but I've heard a lot, and Yashar'el as well, amongst the sisters, that the current living situations don't allow them to be separate. And
Mm-hmm.
that could be true in a lot of cases, but we have to think, have we made an attempt to be able to make ourselves be separate, right? For example, in my household, and I'm a single sister, right? So single or married, but I'm a single sister, but I had children, and my children in truth, and we keep the law, right? And if it's my time, then I have a chair in the corner that I only use, and I let my children know I don't have to say any other type of words like I'm unclean, and that's my chair, so I can still sit in the same space as them. There's a lot of controversy around that, but we're not sitting on the same seats and
I am
things.
so glad you brought that up. Um, I am so glad you brought that up and we're reading it because that was another, I guess, back and forth about, oh, you can't be in the room. If I'm unclean, I can't be in the room with somebody else because now the whole room somehow and the air is unclean, and I'm
Yeah.
just making everybody else unclean by telepathically or just by looking at them. No, and we just read with the men, you have to actually have sat in the chair he sat in. You have to have actually be in
Right.
the same bed where he just slept in, those same sheets. You've had to, touched him. So you can go to the you can go into the house, you can go into the dwelling, and I'm trying to let me stay on your example you were talking about. Let's say you're in a household and you don't have an extra room where you can be separated in, or
Right.
a extra bed you could sleep in. um just be mindful that, okay, let me maybe make I think I heard another sister said she makes a little cot, like a quilt or something, and she folds it like a little twin and
Exactly.
place it on that side, make it kind of like a division, so she's not sleeping on the sheet, but she's sleeping on a different sheet on top of the same bed. That's a way of trying. We don't want to be too over righteous here. You do what you can, how you
Right.
can, as long as you're making an effort. Or maybe, and this is something that you want to talk about with your head. You know, he might be willing to put the blow up bed in the living room or next to the bed, or might be willing to sleep on the couch. But even if you can't even do any of that, it's okay. You're just
Right.
unclean until the evening. You're not unclean for 7. You just have to wash your clothes, okay, and then you're unclean until the evening. You get to start over again clean, okay, for the
I
one
do.
that's, huh?
Yeah, I'm single, but I can only imagine, but I'll just put it out there. So if you're a married sister and you have your husband at home and you know that tonight he needs to go to Bible study, try to stay a safe distance so that he can go around the other brothers and not have to worry about uncleanliness. But when
Right.
he comes home, okay, it's up to him. If he decides to be more in your space, I'll say,
Hi.
but he hasn't brought that into the camp. He hasn't brought that around his brothers. He hasn't brought that on the street while he's teaching, because you were respectful enough to say, this is my time of separation.
Hi.
So I'm just going to stay over here,
Hi.
so that he can still do what he needs to do out in the word, for the word,
Exactly. Exactly. And I can speak to that clearly, because for those of you who are married and want to know how it can actually work, like my husband and I practice this law as much as we can, and we went from having a home where I could go in a separate room and I had my own separate bathroom, but there was still common places where I would touch. So though, and even now, sometimes I'll go in a different room, but if not, like he'll want me to still be in the same bed with him. Fine. He knows that he'll be unclean, but what he doesn't do, what we won't do is like for the Sabbath day is come drawing near, I will make sure that I at least get those unclean sheets off, because we slept in the same bed, because he didn't want me to go in the other room. He wanted me near him, which is fine. But Sabbath drawing near, I'll take those sheets off. I'll have him put the new sheets on, because again, if I'm unclean and I'm handling the clean sheets, now those clean sheets are unclean. So I'll let him put on the clean sheets. He'll sleep there for the Friday sundown, Saturday sundown, so that way when he goes over to the land to do his lessons, he's clean and I'm in a different place. So you can work it out. You can work it out.
Yeah, you can.
It's not grievous at all. Actually, we absolutely love it. He used to hate it when my time was coming. He's like, "Well, you like being away. It's like vacation to me. It's a little getaway." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't care about being with my husband every night. I really don't. But I use it. I have to look at it like, damn, it's my little 7-day vacation. I'm in like 12 steps away in a different area. I have my own little setup. He now loves it because he could get to watch what he want on
Right.
phone all night without me telling him turn the phone off, or it's time to go to bed, or the light bothering me. He don't gotta worry about none of that. And he gets to spread over on my side of the bed, which you don't get to do when I'm in the bed. So, you know, make it it's not grievous. It's not grievous. You got time
It's
to
not.
breathe now.
Yeah, and all praises to the Most High, because what's coming to mind is something you said earlier about how, oh gosh, you might remember how you said it, but it pretty much is there's a way that the Most High wants us to do everything, right? Even when we had to build the tabernacle and the ark, there was a specifics to that, right? So someone watching this who may be new to the truth or not in the truth may say that just sounds so pointless. But what if you have a child, right? He's our father, right? So you have a child and you want something done a certain way, you have a reason for it. And it may be just to make sure you can follow instruction and order,
Right.
or that you'll give what you can to do what you can to be pleasing, because that was the law, or that was the requirement. So no matter what it may sound like to someone new in the truth or not in the truth, it's important because our Father is telling us to do these things, and he doesn't want to bring us into the kingdom if we can't follow, like you said, the smallest request.
Point blank, period. And we all know that blood is unclean. Okay. Don't we do not even talk about the blood of animals, but imagine getting a person's blood on you. We all know that's like ew.
Ugh.
You don't even want to taste your own blood. You don't want your own blood on you, let alone somebody else's blood. And then if and again, this is probably another reason why he's doing it. What it is, because some people don't have good hygiene. So if you go in, if you're talking about you're going to make, I'm gonna say spaghetti because my husband have a story about that too.
Oh
But
gosh. Nobody watching this is gonna be able to cook spaghetti, bro.
You can't be making the spaghetti for the feast and you unclean. And we don't know, and you might have gotten some because you didn't, this is real stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, who
I
knows?
heard that for years.
You know what I'm saying? The stuff, the uncleanliness, your issue will get places where you don't know. We can't see this stuff microscopically, and that's why he's just saying, listen, just sit in your own chair, or if you can't avoid that, just wash your clothes and wipe up the place. You know what I'm saying, and make sure you're good for the next time. But be mindful of it. There's a reason why he's telling us to do this stuff. It's blood we're talking about. We're talking about blood here. If you, in case you don't know what the issue is,
Yeah.
blood and everything else that could run from out inside of your body out. Like we talking about that type of
Right.
stuff. That is not clean stuff. So just think about it. Okay. When your child poops,
Mm-hmm.
you make sure you get all that poop up and up out the way. That poop is unclean.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it in that
Mm-hmm.
sense. Why anything else that's coming out of your body is just okay, and I could just touch you and touch this and touch everything
Right.
else.
Mm-hmm. So just do y'all best, sis.
Right.
Do y'all best, but just try. Okay, so Leviticus 15 and 17. And every garment and every skin whereon is the seed of copulation shall be washed with water and be unclean unto the even. The woman also with whom man shall lie with seed of copulation, they shall both bathe themselves in water and be unclean until the even. And if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days. And whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the even. And everything that she lieth upon in her separation shall be unclean. Everything also that she sitteth upon shall be unclean. And whosoever toucheth her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even. And whosoever toucheth anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even. And if it be on her bed or on anything wherein she sitteth, when he toucheth it, he shall be unclean until the even. 24. And if any man lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean, like you said, sis, getting that blood on you. He shall be unclean 7 days, along with her. And all the bed wherein he lieth shall be unclean.
Now, if I could stop you right there. So we know already, and if you don't know, please read your Bibles, that it says that when a woman is in her time of separation, meaning on her cycle, the monthly, that type of bedroom stuff should not be going on anyway.
Right.
I don't know who does that, but if you do, that's a sin. So,
Yeah.
but and I think I did a lesson solo about this a while ago, but things happen. Maybe you forgot it was coming today, something happened, with you're laying with your husband and it came down, right? It got on him. Okay. So now you're like, okay, you got to stop what you're doing now. You both got to go wash up. You both unclean for 7 days. But if for whatever reason I'm unclean, to say the wife is unclean already 3 days into her uncleanliness, okay, and the blood gets on the husband. Now remember, she's 3 days into it. If the blood gets on her husband now, 3 days into it, he is unclean for 7 days. So she'll be finished with her 7 days in 4 days, but he will be just starting his 7 days. Okay. So now you're gonna have unclean, more unclean time for longer than just 7 days. It'll be what, 3 more days after she's unclean, if I'm doing it right. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be stretched out even longer. It's not when she's done after her 4 days. He's just starting his in her 3rd day for 7 days. That's what this is saying.
25. And if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. Every bed wherein she lieth all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation. And whatsoever she sitteth upon shall be unclean as the uncleanness of her separation. And whosoever toucheth those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. But if she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall number to herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. And on the 8th day she shall take unto her 2 turtles or 2 young pigeons, and bring them unto the priest to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall offer the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for her before the Lord for the issue of her uncleanness. Thus shall ye separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, that they die not in their uncleanness, when they defile my tabernacle that is among them. This is the law of him that hath an issue, and of him whose seed goeth from him and is defiled therewith, and of her that is sick of her flowers, and of him that had an issue, of the man, and of the woman, and of him that lieth with her that is unclean.
So back in 25, it was saying if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation is just 7 days. So if it's running into the 8th day and it still hasn't gone anywhere after sundown the 7th day, you have to count another 7 days. You can't just say, oh, it ran for 1 more day, it's done, it's 8 days. No, after that 7 day sundown, you have to count 7 more days, even if it just lasts 1 more day or a half of another day outside of 7 days. Yeah. You have to count 7 more days. All right. So yeah, just let us know what your take is on their separation. And in for as far as your separation for your 7 days, should you, from your understanding and reading it, is it okay to go to the gathering, or should you be at home, or is either way okay? Again, not going based off of feelings, but from your understanding based off of what was read. Okay. So that was our Chase conversation for tonight. Our reading, Leviticus 14 and 15. And with that, hope that you join us again, most high willing, next Thursday, same time, same place, same link. And with that, say shalom.
Shalom. And if you want to be a part of the conversation, let's leave a comment.
Khan.
Shalom.
Toodles.